Hello, everybody. A very warm welcome to the esteemed audience who has joined us from different parts of the world and to the expert panelists who have taken out time from their busy schedules to be with us for this very important discussion. Thank you so much for joining us as we discuss and deliberate over this very relevant topic of raising the ambition for gender equality in a post COVID world. We've talked about this topic a lot, but I can't emphasize the importance of taking action as we recover in a post COVID world, which I am happy to start in a positive note that while the situation is difficult in India, but in other parts of the world, we are seeing that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I thought it's only a good idea to start on a positive note as we discuss this topic, which has so much hope and positivity when I think and reflect on it. So once again, thank you all of you for taking out time to contribute to this very important discussion. It has been proved beyond doubt that COVID 19 has affected our lives in a manner that is really unprecedented. And not only our lives, but it has also affected the economy, our healthcare system, jobs, and a whole lot of other areas, which really we hadn't even thought about before. We never really thought about this bullet, or should I say a bomb, which will come and strike us. But as they say, all challenges also result in innovation. I'm looking forward to working with all of you and many others to find solutions to new issues and problems as they crop in a post-COVID world. As we know that the pandemic has really impacted women a lot more than it has impacted men. And that's a fact. If you look at some numbers out there, the World Economic Forum's 2021 Global Gender Gap estimates that it will take an average of 135 plus years for women and men to reach parity. Now, as a woman on this panel, it scares me. It really scares me, not only for what my generation has to deal with, but multiple generations have to deal with in the coming years. And it is only our obligation to do something about it and to do as much as we can. So, there are a whole range of factors, whether it is the policy area, whether it is education, whether it is, various other areas. There's much to be done. And, unfortunately, COVID-19 has put a bit of a break, right? Or should I say a pretty severe break on this. And we're going to discuss that as we go into it. So I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but I'd like to bring that out in our discussions. That what was this journey we had stepped the pedal on, and what are the areas we need to be mindful of so that we can accelerate this as we get into the post-COVID world, right? So that is what we really need to deliberate, identify in very specific ways, and come up with solutions so that we are not waiting for another decade to see and discuss the impact of the post-COVID, pandemic-related issues which we all suffered. So if I fast forward 10 years later, I hope we can all say that we were prepared to deal with this pandemic because we thought about it, we learned from the past, and we zoomed through it in a world which was more supportive and addressed the issues in a wholehearted way, as we only should. So I'm really ready and have all ears to discuss this topic with all of you. I'm delighted to introduce a highly experienced set of panelists here today. I'd like to welcome Dr. Alka Mittal, my dear friend, co-panelist, who I have met on a number of panels. Can't wait to see you in person. You're the director, HR, ONGC. Very, very delighted to have you here. Thank God, at least we can meet virtually. I also have Kim Gabrielli, uh, Executive Director, UN Global Compact, Norway. It's really a pleasure to have you on this panel. It is so empowering to be able to discuss issues across the globe, courtesy this platform where we can share our learnings, where we can share our experiences, and learn from each other. I think that is the most powerful way to collaborate and get things done. So thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. I also have Parinita Cecile Lakra, Country People and Culture Manager, IKEA, India. It's a pleasure to have you, Parinita. Thank you for taking out the time to be with us. I also have Zainab Javed Patel, Director, Inclusion and Diversity at KPMG India. Thank you so much for taking out the time to join us. And then Tarishi Kamra, Associate Director, Human Resources at PepsiCo India. What an excellent set of people I have with me today to delve into this important discussion. So, without much ado, I'd like to dive in and go to Dr. Mittal. Dr. Mittal, you have had such an exemplary experience, in a way I would define as a role model for many because, you know, I think the best way to be at the workplace is to be who you are, to do what you do, and to give it your best and excel at it. And you have done exactly that, right? You have been in a world which has been dominated by men, if I could say that. And yet, I think when I've spoken to you, every time I've spoken to you, it's just been about your professional experiences and how you push the envelope to do your best and to do better. I couldn't think of a better way to start this conversation. You have trained and mentored and sponsored many, many over the last couple of decades. So, if you could share with us that what are the ways which came in handy as you went along your professional career to not only instill gender equality norms in the workplace, to make it better for yourself, but also to make it better for others. And so, if you could make some opening comments and delve on this and talk a little bit about the various catalysts to make the workplace better, for all of us, that'll be a great start to today's conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, dear Vaishali, and my distinguished fellow panelists. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. Definitely, virtually, we are able to connect more often and across greater distance. So that is the advantage. While we have been talking about, as Vaishali has very rightly said, the COVID has really taken us on. But there are certain positives also there. And the kind of optimist I am, I would normally like to talk so much about the positives that are emerging from this very, very otherwise, I would say the word positive is hitting people. COVID positive means, oh, the world is falling apart. That's what people feel. But I see it, I see lots of opportunities in this situation and lots of challenges too. So while I would like to first compliment UN Global Compact on putting up this very event together for all of us to get together and talk, deliberate, and this just takes me back, more than 10 years. I would say 11 years. In 2010, I remember we were talking about women empowerment principles, and being a part of the UN Global Compact initiative on behalf of ONGC, we had put up a small document, which got published, of taking on the women empowerment principles and various case studies from our country. And the way the stories of women from the rural background and those who were working in different domains came up together in that document, it felt, I felt, when I was participating in the whole process, I felt that I started doing my bit for my gender, I would say. Because while we are doing professionally so much all the while, and having been in this industry, the oil and gas industry, for over 36 years now, there's so much we have done to contribute towards our organization. So that was the time when I started realizing that we have to do something to have a better gender parity, more gender equality in our domain. That is what will make me satisfied when I hang my boots, and when I am able to say that, okay, the number of girls in my industry is much better, and I have been able to motivate a few to rise further up, because they would always join the industry. Girls do come and join, take up assignments, but when they see the rigors of the work that is involved, or the kind of duty patterns that are there, the kind of work requirement that is there, and at times the kind of ecosystem that is in some areas yet to evolve, they give up and they start, by the time they reach mid career, women start thinking of softer options. And that is the time when they have to work on themselves and those around themselves, the organization contributing towards creating the ecosystem which they know they will be able to thrive in, and so will others who join in the years to come. So I feel that that is the point when we should not be giving up. But girls, especially with the kind of multifaceted responsibilities they have, the kind of roles that are there, at times they feel that at least on this front they should be a little more comfortable. But this is one thing, Vaishali, I just could not get into. I never could be in my comfort zone. The moment I would feel that, okay, I'm able to do my job at the end of the day very, very comfortably, and I'm able to be in a position to put down my pen and paper on time, I always started thinking that I must be doing something more. I should be doing something to add to my profile, to add to my qualifications. And that is what kept me going. And that is what I feel the girls in our professional domains should be looking at. While we can always be working from home and limiting our job to a few meetings that we attend, or a few assignments that our seniors give us, but we should also be looking at adding value to our own self, as a professional, how we are able to read up more, how we are able to interact more with others, and understand what other organizations are doing, what other professionals are doing,
Sure.
and feel enriched at the end of the day. For me, the key was that when I would leave my home for office, I would always feel that a great day is about to begin at work. And I would always, when I would be packing up my bag, I would always feel at the end of the day at my workplace that I have done a bit to earn my evening at home with my children, with my two daughters and my wonderful mother-in-law and my husband. And that is what has kept me going. So while we are talking about the World Economic Forum, how we were always feeling that better can be done by the organizations, and ILO also said that, has mentioned that there are less women at senior levels. In fact, only 30% of the women reach the senior levels. So we have to look at how we can build up numbers for the women. And the challenges we all know, the lack of girls taking up STEM courses, women not able to continue beyond the mid career positions, as I just mentioned. So the requirement at our level, when I was entering the slightly senior level, I realized that the requirement is to create that environment where first the basic hygiene factors are taken care of. for ONGC, since we are present in the fields, we started talking about ensuring that good washrooms are available for the girls. And also, while when they are to travel at late hours, vehicle should be there for them, a dedicated vehicle, because at times security is one issue which keeps girls, holds back girls from moving forward. And while we were talking about this, once I took over as director HR of ONGC, and I was visiting different fields, which I had been doing before that also. I always used to feel that the dangri I am donning on, the dangri I am in, the overall, is not very comfortable. It's not customized for women. So that is when we took on NID Ahmedabad, National Institute of Design Ahmedabad, and we partnered with them to create a dangri which is comfortable for the girls. And let me share with you the 161 girls who are there in the fields of ONGC, in the oil fields, who are working day and night, who are working in different shifts. Their life has become a little more comfortable because they are on duty for 12 hours. And that is where, if they are not comfortable in a particular attire that they are wearing, imagine how, what kind of impact it will have on their physical well-being and their mental abilities as well. So these are a few things which I always feel one has to keep adding on to while you are doing your work, because continuing to work, continuing to create, make a difference is something which we all do. But
Absolutely. Dr. Mithil, what I'll do is I will come back to some of these because I know you have such
certainly,
a wealth of examples which are there. I want to make sure I go through the first round. I'll come back to you. You've
certainly.
made some fantastic points. The one I really sort of enjoyed listening to was customizing the workplace for multiple genders, not only for men. And that's what we all feel at the workplace. Right now, I would have been sitting in my office in 45 degrees, freezing in my office in this shirt because the temperatures are not right. And we're always struggling in my team, for example, when you have often the temperatures which are always managed for men wearing suits, etc., and not always for women. And there are many other issues like that, the dungarees which you talked about. What an innovative way to find solutions at NID, and we need so many more, and you can only do it sometimes, I feel, if you've gone through it. And so therefore, it's great to have you in this role and working in this direction. I'll come to you, Kim. You've been at the forefront of sustainability and gender-based discussions all around the world, pretty much. And what do you see as the biggest challenge and hurdle with regard to the gender parity balance, which we all seek in a post-COVID world? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Let me just first send all the best thoughts to India for the situation you are in the middle of. And I must say I'm impressed of the positivism you're trying to show, all of you here in this talk today. Let me just start out saying that, to close the gender gap also in companies is just a moral imperative. Women are not a minority. Sometimes it's even the majority. So that's just starting out there, and also saying at the same time, there are so many reports by now that shows that it's also really good for business. Just like the Chinese say, women hold half the sky, holds half the societies. If we lose out on all the competence and all the things that women bring to the table, we are losing out. So this has been an important thing for Norway for many years, and a relatively successful history of gender parity in the country, also in companies. But of course, we also only have 20%, or we went down to 19% of women or workers in the oil and gas industry are women. So we only have less than 10% of CEOs amongst the 100 largest companies being women. This despite all the work that have been going on for many years, all the regulations. On the on the COVID. So the last numbers I looked at was OECD PwC report that says that we are now back to 2017 numbers on gender parity in the world, on the balance in companies. It doesn't sound that bad, you know, it's only 4 years back, right? But if you look at the bigger picture, we saw that for the first time since 1990, the numbers on extreme poverty is going the wrong way. I think we can also assume that it will affect one of the great numbers we saw from 1990 to 2015, and that was the fact that we halved the amount of girls that didn't start in primary school. So, I mean, we saw a really good development that started early in life. And I think it goes back to what has already been said. How do we adapt daily work life to the needs of women? How do we build toilets that are for women? How do we adapt the whole sort of work life, including paternal, and not only maternal leave, but also the one for the father? And I think this is one of the things we see now, that in the Norwegian context, we are really lucky. I mean, we have an oil fund, we have a good economy that has been keeping the work life quite, you know, even though it's very digital, it's still quite similar. But I think on the gender perspective, there is the challenge of getting from you know, things like women empowerment principles and down to the concrete work at work. And then the question is, who are losing the jobs first, right? How do you ensure that the CEO says, of course, women and men are equal, when we are now firing people because we have to due to the economical situation? And I think this is what we see very often, is the importance of having the, you know, the decision on the top, that we're actually going to focus on this not only in leader positions, but also in procurement, what sort of expectation we have to our customers. And I think this is the most important thing. And I think this doesn't change in the COVID time. It's still the same. We need to put this high on the agenda. We don't have, you know, we don't have the opportunity nor time to lose out on all the competence and qualification that women have. And especially in a small country like Norway with only 5 million people, you can just imagine if we took away half the population. It's not a place to go. It's a moral imperative to change that also for us. And we need to remember that World Economic Forum have tons of reports that show that the returns are actually higher if you have more women in the company and in the banks. So that's, I think that sums it up for me, and I'm happy to, you know, come back to some of the questions later.
Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you for that perspective. And, you know, you're very right in saying that, you know, as we go back to work, as we kind of bounce back, you know, with technology making working so convenient, it's actually a little bit of a false convenience for women, because what happens is, while it's convenient to stay at home, the workplace is struggling because of the economic reasons you just outlined. And so what happens, you know, is FaceTime more important? Is that actually not going to help women? So we have to be on our guard a little bit and make sure that we foresee the risks of some of these so-called advantages which are staring at us, and we make sure that we don't get consumed by it. So it's just a little bit of a warning to my women colleagues, and especially some of the younger ones who are really struggling with young families, where it's actually very difficult. That's the toughest part in the graph of a woman's career. And Dr. Mittal mentioned she has her mother-in-law with her, and it, you know, in our extended family, we find that a real boon, where families can help each other do better. And so I thought, you know, that you made some really great points. Thanks, Kim. Zainab, I want to come to you. It's really fantastic to have you amongst us today. You know, I have seen you speak so eloquently about, you know, how the British colonialism in India had criminalized transgender community, and you know, and truly the community has been marginalized for a long time, And we really do need voices like yours to be able to do better as far as just understanding this issue. And today I would like to say that you're really an inspiration for us. You speak out so well and so clearly. I'd like you to share with us today what are the challenges you face in an already very challenging situation we are all in, right? It's almost like a double whammy for where you are. So please share some challenges with us today. Once again, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Vaishali. I'll be mindful of time and try to be very concise in what I said. So, interestingly, we talk about COVID times. And if I look at the entire, it's been a year since the WHO, talked about COVID, brought in this international emergency, etc. But for people like us, people who come in from diverse sexual orientation, gender identity expression, sex characteristics, whether it's an act of resistance, it's an act of support, healing, they are always a part of a life and struggle. Whether it's a dream that's held fast, a fist that's raised in solidarity, a ear that's providing listening support, any kind of life preserving act, whether it's seen or unseen, it's big or small, are performed every day in our lives in the face of beaten stigma, discrimination, and violence. And I talk about this not only from the perspective of being a transgender woman. I also speak on the intersectionalities of having a Muslim name and an identity, that of also sharing the gender identity of being a woman. And all of these get so compounded. Although I consider myself very privileged, Vishali, I mean to say, having advanced college degree, working with one of the largest management consulting organizations in India, had a successful career working with the UN, worked as a policy analyst, now leading a company as a director. So definitely there is a lot that I have been able to accomplish. But if I look at every region of the world, I think even with the most advanced countries which offer protection on grounds of sexual orientation, gender identity expression, people like me, people who I share a common identity and expression with, are routinely denied their rights to freedom, to safety and equality. We are talking about gender equality, but I would say the right to freedom and safety, which would kind of walk hand in hand, or at sometimes even precede the right to equality, go often bashed up. I mean, people are bashed up for being who they are. They are outlined. They are murdered for whom they are. And I remember very clearly when the Nirbhaya case happened, and I was working with the UN system in India at that point of time. And I remember attending a panel discussion right after that, because we had the 14 days of activism happening. And I remember telling that we have so many Nirbhayas in our community, and unfortunately, no one to talk about them. Because, there's an African proverb that goes that, history will always be kind to the hunters until lions start writing their histories. And I think it's time that people start talking about their stories. And I think people like me, people who have broken boundaries, who have challenged, we talk about the glass ceiling for women. And I think it's the concrete ceiling for transgender people, because I am not able to see the floor above me. So for me, I am my own benchmark. I have to break my own benchmark in order to perform better, and to perform better, to be a role model, to kind of tell the world that, there is something beyond the body, there is something beyond the expression, and look at me for what I am. Look at me for my ability for nation building, and look at me for my ability, because there are LGBT people in global COVID responses, in the climate change, fighting racial discrimination, fighting intersectionality, providing healthcare. And why is it that people who have these kind of identities continue to be roadblocks? And I think in the process of unbreaking the entire COVID-related system. In the process of building back, we are all building ourselves back and preparing for further waves of COVID and also kind of building our resilience. And that's where gender equality will have to be in the forefront. And gender equality, not in the sense of binary, but in the sense of the non-binary, bringing all genders to the table. And I'm not saying one particular gender is more marginalized than the other. There are intersectionalities. There are intersectionalities based on body, on religion, on geography, on ability. And I think there is some time, we have this pervasive habit of whitewashing everything into a black and white. The underlying themes of caste, for that matter, of a religion. It's very interesting, Vaishali, and I'll take one more minute to explain my point, that I actually come from a Christian family, and I use a Muslim name, although I am religion agnostic, I am a Sufi. But the fact is that religion-based discrimination is so real. And I remember the day, when I legally changed my name, one of my colleagues from the UN system called me up and she said, why did you choose a name like Zainab in a country like India right now because of the political, social climate? Why didn't you choose a gender neutral name? And I was appalled at hearing that my colleague for so many years, someone who is within the UN system talking about rights, telling me that why did I choose this name? And I said that Zainab is one of the most powerful orators in Islamic history. And I took her name not because of the significance of what it means in Arabic, a beautiful flower, but the essence of women leadership. And it is women who are always leading in forefront and women who are challenging. Because if you look at what Margaret Mead said, that never doubt the capability of a few committed citizens, they can change the world. And look at our panel. We are all changing the way the world we are living in, the way we associate, the way we work. Look at what Alka said, in all of her experiences, in what of everything that Kim said, we are changing the world, even if it means working within the close cohorts of people that we are. And I think this is the most important block that we need to take for. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zainab. What I would say, courageous story. And we need more voices, and we need voices which are louder. And, and that's the way, I think, if you go back in history, when you do anything which is, I guess, not as known, it's important, and it's our obligation to talk more about it. And we're so proud of you for doing what you're doing. Yes,
I just wanted to add one point, because today a lot of people talk about feminism and, aggressive feminism, toxic feminism. But for me, when I see this beautiful panel, it's about leading with feminist principles. And that is redefining value and success. It's sharing power and credit. Look at us. We are building community, building relations, ultimately tackling the roots of oppressive structures and social norms. And that is holding back the progress of everyone. So I believe that this is the transformative feminist leadership that is going to face the unprecedented challenges of our time.
Great. Thank you so much, Zainab. Appreciate it. All great points. I wish we had some more time on this panel so that we could be discussing this a lot more, but I'm sure we'll do another one soon. But thanks for your insights, Zainab. And Parinita, over to you. A very quickly, very crisp question in the interest of time. We've heard that women are more likely to lose jobs in a post-COVID world, right? And so what would your advice be for women to be cautious and to ensure that they are looking out for the warning signs as we enter that street?
Thank you so much, Vaishali. And I think firstly, I wanted to say a thank you for invitation to join this panel. And actually to have the possibility to talk and discuss on this very, very relevant topic. And with different perspectives from what industries are doing, what we are seeing socially. I think the acknowledgement, and we've placed that, the crisis has been quite demanding for women in the workforce and across industries. And if I may, I think from a retail standpoint, given that's the industry that, let's say, I would have a little bit more insight into, we've heard it, very similar. It's been huge responsibilities towards home, towards work, towards families. and also self. I think it's also important not to forget that. Interestingly, having said that, and something which Dr. Alka mentioned about, I also want to say, I think post wave one, what we saw that we have not just women and women leaders, they played an equal, if not a stronger role with resilience and with determination to actually come back, to setting up or restarting business. So something which Kim also indicated, that having women in business is really, really good and really important. And it's actually, from all dimensions, it's a thumbs up from the customer standpoint, from an operations standpoint, from a leadership standpoint. I think it's also important that from an advice standpoint, it's not just about women, things to look out for. I first want to place, I think, responsibility on organizations. At a fundamental level, yes, there has been underrepresentation of women across industries. And it's really, really heartening to see that a lot of companies are now taking actions, steps, and calling out on commitments to overcome this. And over the years, movement is happening. But I think it's important that organizations, businesses, when you start looking at gender equality, it's important that it's not seen as a mere number exercise. And that's where I'll pick up to what Zainab was mentioning. It really has to incorporate multi-dimensions. It's having gender balanced workplaces, it's having equal representations, it's having equal benefits, it's having equal opportunities, both for career development as well as for learning, and a complete inclusion. It becomes really, really important. And maybe if I could share, just one little example that I could call it little, but something that we saw in IKEA. The retail wing for IKEA, we started in 2014. And when we were starting up, of course, when we looked at the industry around, we saw that we were, the maximum at best, we would have 25% women in workforce. And this is like really absolute best. And we had a choice. We had a choice to either accept that or actually to push the boundary, go completely in and say, no, that's not good enough. And since then, we've had a 50-50 gender approach. We have worked with multiple dimensional approaches, not just from recruitment, equal development. We've had equal benefits like parental leave, 6 months for both men, women, single parents, parents of same gender. We've ensured that we are looking a closer look on our development opportunities. Are our women growing? We've also had cases where we had more number of women growing, than the men, but also, bringing it back to an equal platform, and also culminating it towards commitment for equal pay. Because I think what's really important is that in organizations, we internally bring the mindset, we talk about it, that we build the awareness, and we also bring in commitment, which is more for the long term and not for the short term. In the pandemic context, I think, Vaishali, to your question, I think it's very important for women and actually all genders to talk about what we see around us. The awareness becomes really, really important. And like Zainab was also mentioning, picking from there, at IKEA, we look at equality as a fundamental right for every individual. So if we have things that are working, we celebrate that. And through conversations, if we realize that things are not working, then we start looking at solutions. We look at what we could do to improve that, because at the end of the day, it's really important that commitment towards equality is great, but if we do not have inclusion, it may defeat the complete purpose. So two organizations have full commitment towards this. It's really good, important for the business. It is something that the next generations demand. It's not something that is, for when we look at our children, they don't identify with what your gender is. Their perspective is absolutely towards equality. So for us to be relevant and to survive in the future, this is mandatory. We need to be, completely equal and inclusive. And for all co-workers, irrespective of gender, talk about it. I think it's very important to have heightened levels of awareness that we can talk about it and find good solutions in case we do not have one.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Parinita, for those very, very insightful comments and the kind of role model, your organization is being And it's really music to our ears. I wish I was young and at work, and and I was privy to that security which comes with knowing that as you go out and plan a family and do things which are so important for this world to raise fine young individuals, that you have the support of an ecosystem. It's just not your partner, it's just not your family, it's not your organization, but it's the totality of it all. So it's really wonderful to see what IKEA is doing. Thanks for sharing those with us. And Tarashi, now over to you. Last but definitely not the least, I want you to talk about some of the positive approaches a company, especially in the FMCG sector, we've seen they've been miles ahead of various other sectors. For example, the infra space in which I operate, huge difference, when we look at numbers in both the sectors. I'd like you to share some positive approaches which are being taken in the sector, which other sectors can benefit from.
Sure, Vishali. Thank you so much for having me here. I think it's a privilege to be a part of this wonderful panel. Having said that, to your question, if I look at FMCG, our business case for diversity actually stems from the fact that majority of the shoppers themselves are women. So our customers have a majority of women as well, right? But if I look at the industry, we still have a long way to go, because there are, of course, a lot of good practices that we have, but there are a couple of other industries that we can really pick up a lot of practices from. Talking about FMCG and PepsiCo specifically, some of the approaches that we have actually very, very focused and laser sharp approach towards creating an inclusive ecosystem, developing internal talent, and including succession planning and mentoring. And of course, diversity hiring for key roles. These three in combination actually make the bulk of what FMCG as a industry is really looking at, as well as if I can talk about PepsiCo specifically. To take that forward, huge efforts have actually been taken towards increasing gender sensitivity. So we started our gender sensitization journey back in 2016, actually. And right now are moving towards a culture of allyship and internal mentoring, right? Similarly, mitigating unconscious biases. You may, in our just basic language, there are a lot of times that we don't really refer to as an equitable system. So, making folks really understand what that means. On the developing internal talent piece, via succession planning, I think we've been able to really unlock some bold moves internally, and really given some larger opportunities to our internal women talent, of course, showing that the careers within a particular company can really be great. And of course, diversity hiring for key roles. We've in fact been able to almost double our sales representation. And if I talk about FMCG, actually, diversity within sales and supply chain functions becomes the biggest challenge. And I'm sure some of the panelists can echo with that, because it's really, really hard to get women in the frontline roles or back in the factories. So really trying to add women out there in key roles, as well as trying to look at frontline changes, which can enable women to really come out. As well as a string of policy changes. We actually made our maternity leave 6 months much ahead of law. In fact, it was ahead of the law by years. Added daycare on site as well as near site, giving reimbursements to women to actually take care of their daycare expenses, to actually be able to contribute and concentrate fully at work, mentally as well as physically. Introducing paternity leaves back in 2018. We've been doing a string of these changes which have actually been able to help us go there. Pretty much that. I think the one thing that's common across FMCG industry, I think, is tone from the top. The leadership really helps make those changes. I'm conscious of time, so I'll stop here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tarashi. And so sorry that we couldn't hear more from you, but I'm sure we'll have another session, because I couldn't get into my round 2. But I think we sussed out a lot in our first round. So many diverse perspectives. I think I'd like to conclude by saying we just have to have the privilege of being who we are at the workplace. Doesn't matter what our gender is, where we come from, where we belong, our caste, our religion, nothing matters. It's about what we bring to the table to bring about the change we all want to bring together. So let's work powerfully towards that and look forward to many more discussions. I'd like to wish all of you, a lot of safety during these times, especially in India. Thank you for taking out the time to join us. And Kim, thank you for bringing in your perspectives from Norway. Very refreshing. And take care and all the best. Thanks for taking out the time. It was a real pleasure speaking to you and learning so much from all of you today. Thank you. And thank you to the Global Compact Network India for organizing this session. It was a pleasure moderating it. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Vishal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.